Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Facebook Live session today. And before we do anything else, just to wish you a happy Christmas and a happy New Year from all at Dementia Carers Count. I'm Nathan Jarvis, and I'm part of the community engagement team and fundraising team. I've been here for not very long, about 7 months, and my interest, professional and personal, is mainly because my mother has dementia and she's 90 in 2 weeks' time. We're really fortunate today to be joined by Marianne Sciucco, who's the co-founder of AlzAuthors. And first of all, thank you for joining us. I know it's really cold there. We've had this conversation. You're coming to us live from New York. It's great to see you. Thank you for your time. Before we start, and we've got loads of questions, we've had lots of interest in this Facebook Live session today. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Anything you like, and how you started in the first place would also be really interesting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nathan, for inviting me to be on your show and speak to your listeners. AlzAuthors started as a 1-month project back in 2015, when I reached out to 2 other authors of books about Alzheimer's and dementia to see if they might want to partner to help raise awareness of these conditions and also to promote our books. It was a truly selfish project, I guess you could say. And we ended up doing a 1-month project for Alzheimer's and Dementia Awareness Month here in the States, and discovered that we really liked each other. We did not know each other. We had never met before in person. We met online. We had read each other's books. And after, the first promotion, we decided, why don't we just keep going? And what ended up happening is a year later, we had a blog and we were posting a new book every week about Alzheimer's or dementia, written from personal experience. So these are books that are written by people who have been on an Alzheimer's journey themselves, and they've chosen to share what they've learned in their experiences, whether it's in a memoir or a caregiver guide, a poetry book, a children's book, fiction. We have many genres represented. And after a little bit of that, we expanded into doing a podcast. So we interview our authors on our podcast, and we do virtual events. We've done several over the last year or so, where we invite our authors to be on a panel, and people can sign up to participate, and they can ask questions, and everything is recorded so people can watch it if they can't make the live session. We have a bookstore, and it's all categorized to make it easy for people to find the book that they're looking for. It's something that meets their situation. They may not have time to wade through hundreds and hundreds of books, so we try to make it easy for them. And there are some other things too going on. So we're really busy, and like I said, we're just trying to turn the situation around for caregivers from panic to confidence, to give people resources so that they can understand what the journey that they're on, understand their loved one, and understand what needs to be done.
That really sums up how we felt all those years ago, nearly 10 years ago. And it was panic. It was, what do we do now? Because so often that first experience is of your parents, isn't it? And you don't know what to do or where to go for help. I can definitely relate to that one. Just to say, before we really get into the conversation, if anybody has any questions or comments, if you can put it in the chat, and we'll try and get to that. If we get too many, what we'll try and do is deal with those questions afterwards, but do be patient with us if we get sort of inundated. So thank you for that. It's a good way of asking the questions anonymously as well. So Marianne, one of the things that stood out for me, having had a good look at your website, which is fabulous, and also the details will be shared in the chat as well, was a really interesting statement that to me got to the heart of what it is we're trying to do and what you're trying to do. And it's when you say, one can sing a lonely song, but we choose to form a choir and create harmony. I really love that sentiment. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that informed how you developed really into what you are today?
Yes, many people who either are living living with dementia or caring for a loved one with dementia, they feel isolated. They feel very alone on the journey, on their day to day, and may not realize that there are millions of other people doing the same thing in their community, people they may even know. A lot of people don't talk about it. There's much stigma attached. It's a brain illness. It's attached or associated with mental illness, which are huge stigma illnesses here and I believe in the UK and everywhere, really. Nobody likes the concept of losing your mind. So people may tend to minimize the situation or try to keep it private. That's a huge factor, trying to protect the dignity of their loved one. So when you act that way, there is a sense of isolation. People don't always know that help is available, and a lot of it is like readily available in your community. I know that in the UK, there are many resources, just like there are here in the States. And a lot of it depends upon where you live, but there's a lot of online stuff that you can get to. So all of the, the authors who started this had all been on that experience and feeling isolated and alone and searching for information. And a lot of this was in the last 20 years or so. The journeys were not very recent. They were done in the late 90s and the early 2000s. So there really wasn't a lot of resources available at that time. And we realized that together, if we open up and talk to each other, instead of being alone, singing a lonely song, but reaching out to others and building community, we can better and enable ourselves to be successful caregivers, to learn what we need to learn, to understand what is happening to our loved one, how it impacts our lives, what can we do to help, where do we go for supports. And together we can bring more awareness to these conditions and to decrease the stigma that's associated. And then the larger sense is when you have many people in the grassroots making a lot of noise, eventually, you form organizations, and the organizations build upon communities that go into the government, into the legislatures, into the public space there, and try to enact legislative change in healthcare, rules, regulations, plans, funding for research, funding for care. I mean, it becomes this huge thing, and we've got that going on here in the States. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't happen when people sit at home and think that they're all by themselves. None of that happens.
I think for me, that key word is choice. We choose to either be alone. I mean, it's very hard, isn't it, sometimes for people to reach out. And just thinking about certainly with my mother and other friends whose parents have dementia, thinking about the way which we sort of handle those initial realization that something is wrong. And very often people do that with humor. So they sort of think it's funny that, mother or Aunt Flo or whoever is forgetting names or constantly having to look in a diary. And I wonder if that's also our way of coping, because it's such a shocking thing for us to have to acknowledge, and that life is going to be different for us, the caregiver, and for the person who is tripping over words or forgetting. I don't know what you think about that. It's almost humanity, isn't it, to poke fun at something in order for us to protect ourselves and maybe try to understand it later.
That gets back to the whole thing about the stigma of there being like a mental problem and you're afraid to find out. And I think the most significant in all of that, change. Humans do not like change. And whenever anyone has a serious illness, life-changing and even terminal, this is a terminal illness, it means there is going to be great change. It's going to affect everybody involved in that person's life, their children, their spouse, anyone who cares. And people, they don't want that. So to push it aside, to make fun, to overlook, to make excuses. We did that with my stepfather when his behaviors became really bizarre and erratic. Well, he had always been a jokester and a prankster. So we said, oh, he's just being himself. And this went on for several years before it just got to a point where we're like, there is something seriously wrong going on here. We need to do something about it. And we did. And it came at, that price of change, massive change. in in his life, and everybody's life. And I think that's what people shy away from. And again, it all comes back to like not knowing what your options are, and that there are supports and help available, and it's available in your community. Some of it may be covered by your health plan. Maybe not. It's very expensive. You can go bankrupt caring for a loved one with dementia. So that I think is the biggest factor, is fear of change.
I think we just had a comment from Amy. Thank you, Amy. It says, humor has got me through so many tough times. I used to be guilty about it at first, but my dad wouldn't want me to be miserable. That's a really good point, and well made. Thank you, Amy. I just wonder whether we could go back to the beginning. So I think you said 2015. How did it go from, were you sort of sat around having a cup of tea and you came up with this amazing idea? How do you go from that idea to where you are today?
We, when we first started, we had no vision that we would have over 300 authors included, and, thousands of followers. So we just did things, in our own little way to try to raise the awareness. And when we did 2 campaigns in 2015, and in 2016, we came up with the idea of bringing on other authors and doing the blog. And at first we were kind of worried about how are we going to get people to write for us, because we were going to post 1 blog a day, Monday to Friday, for 4 weeks. So we needed 20 people that we didn't know. And we just started reaching out to people. And the trick of it was we didn't reach out to people who were famous or celebrities or known in the field. We were working with authors who were trying to establish an audience, but were unknown, and normal people like us, carers, people who had never written a book before and would never write another book, but they had this one story to tell, and they told it well. So we approached these people, and of course they were thrilled to in some kind of publicity. So at the end of that first month, we had more authors in the queue. So then we decided, well, we'll keep this going for a while and see what happens, maybe just once a week. And so we just kept plugging along week after week, and we would have to look for the authors. And then after a year or so, people started approaching us. Now we're at the point where we have so many authors approaching us that we had to shut down our submissions system for the holiday because we couldn't keep up with it anymore. And we wanted to take a break. So we don't even have to really look for books anymore. They come to us. And at the same time that all of this was occurring, more and more people were writing books. Whereas when we started, there really weren't nearly as many as there are now.
That's really the appeal as well. Like you say, it's people who have first-hand experience, who are not celebrities or public voice. It's giving voice to the people who need to speak, isn't it? I think that's
really the whole premise. It's we would like to have some of the well-known people, but a lot of them we're just so small, and the publicists, that you have to go through publicists and publishing house, and we can't access them. We do have some, but for the most part, they're just these were just carers and people, they go through this for years and years. And at the end, it all comes to a natural conclusion, I like to say. And people are left with all of this knowledge and time too. And they start rehashing it and thinking about maybe sharing what they've learned. They don't want it to have been to be lost, that others need it. So they write their own book, a lot relying on their journals, diaries, notes, whatever they've had from the journey to build upon, and then really painstakingly, cathartically reliving their experience, which in many ways is very healing. It brings them healing. And then together as an organization and a group, we all help heal each other from the trauma of dementia care, because it is trauma.
And I think that's the important thing, is the sharing of that knowledge and information. We hear very often that it's not lack of information out there that's the problem. It's trying to coordinate it, and also the practical side is just so difficult. And some of the things I've read on your website, I wish I'd read 10 years ago, because that's the information that I needed, but couldn't find, unfortunately. But now, I mean, we're speaking to you in upstate New York. I'm in North Wales, in Snowdonia. Technology has changed everything, hasn't it? It's been a wonderful way of reaching people throughout the pandemic, but also it's just a tool that we use sort of every day now. I think I'd love to hear a bit more about how you provide access to books and to blogs and resources. We are going to put the website there and also your 6 words memoir project. Well, the details will come up later. But if you just want to tell us practically, if somebody arrives at your website, what are they going to find and how do they navigate it?
So if you go to the homepage at AlzAuthors.com and scroll down, first it'll give you a little intro to us. You'll see our video. We recently had the privilege of being able to have a professional television producer create a video for us so people can meet us, the management team members and founders, and learn about our background and why we do what we do. And you scroll down and it'll start showing you each bi-weekly blog post. So we used to do a weekly blog post featuring a new book and a new author, and we had to go to a bi-weekly schedule because it was, becoming overwhelming. And then it is interspersed with our podcast. So yeah, every other week we have a podcast. So you can scroll down and you can, it kind of like gives you an overview of the entire website, and you'll see the latest blog post. We've been on hiatus for the holiday. So the last one was, I think, December 12th. And then at the top of the bar, you can visit the blog directly, where you'll see each blog post with an intro to help you find something that's going to resonate with you. So if you're taking care of your mom, then you might just be interested in things that are relating to taking care of your mom. If you're taking care of your husband or your wife, if you've got kids and your kids are involved in a dementia journey as well, we have authors and books that are related specifically for that. We have reviewed films. We have a couple of filmmakers. We're looking for more. There are blogs, not just books. So there are blogs. If people don't have time to sit and read a book, that seems to be the big challenge. If you pick up a book, a lot of times people, a carer will say, I don't have 10 or 12 hours to spend on this book. I mean, I just don't. But you might have 5 or 10 minutes a day. So you might be able to read a blog post or even like just a few pages in a book that are going to help you, or listen to audiobook or listen to the podcast and pick information up that way. So we try to put it in like a multimedia format that will meet people where they are. So we learned that early on that, books are beautiful. All of us love books. All of us go to a book when we have a question, but most people don't read. The average person here in the States reads about 12 books a year. So when you want to read a book, you have to stop everything. You can't like sit with a book and do something else because it demands all of your time and attention. So if you listen to podcast or audio book or something else, then you can pick up information as you need it on the go, and it's not so much of a commitment. So we want people to know that, no, you don't have to devote, a week's time to reading something. You can pick and choose or listen or do something else. And
as a carer, it's very hard, isn't it, to either just find that time or to switch off your brain from caring to actually do something else and not feel guilty about it, perhaps.
Yeah, we recommend that people schedule it into their day. Like you should have a schedule, care schedule every day. Most people I think do, like, we're going to do this then, and stick to it. It's very good for the person with dementia to have a structured schedule. And then you could structure in 15 minutes of reading time throughout that day and try to adhere to it.
Fabulous. Gina says, this is an amazing idea, Marianne. So refreshing to have other carers offering support in this way. How can I stay up to date with AlzAuthors? Are you on Facebook?
We are on Facebook. It's called Alzheimer's and Dementia Resources, AlzAuthors. You just plug in AlzAuthors, you'll find it. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So you can sign on to all of those accounts. And we have a very robust social media presence. We are posting lots of stuff every day. We post about our events, our authors, our books. We share information from the authors. We share general dementia information. So you'll find a lot there. If you go on our website, after a few seconds, you're going to get a pop-up to join the newsletter. You can sign your email up to our newsletter. We send one out every week. It's chock full of info about the latest book, the latest podcast, any events that are coming up, events that the authors are doing. A lot of what we do is online. So you can join in from anywhere, and a lot of it's recorded. So if you miss it, you can, sign on later and watch it later if you want. So there's many ways to stay engaged with us.
Okay, brilliant. One thing I was going to ask, and it sounds like you've grown in a really sort of organic way, responding to what people want and need. I want to ask you about the mobile library. How does that work? We're a bit far away here for that, but how is that developing, and are you going to expand it?
So we started with featuring just the ebook version of all the books. I mean, most of the books are available in print and then audio books, some of them. But for our thing was that just to provide ebooks because of the ease of access, and people can, and they're usually inexpensive. People can download them. Some of the books, a lot of the books are self-published, so they may not be available in your library, although you could always ask the librarian to buy the book for you. But carriers may not have time to go out and access physical books unless they do it on Amazon. So we just stuck with the Kindle books, and then we realized people started sending us their books for review, and we would see them, in a pile or together, and realized how beautiful they were. So we came upon the idea of developing the traveling library. So we had about 7 or so of them. All the management team members and a couple of other people had them because they were going out and doing live events, educational events, book events, or whatever, and would bring the books with them. At one point, I had about 75 books to take with me. I took them to a few events. But what happened with COVID is then nobody was going out and doing events anymore. So the books were lying dormant. And, the idea of a book not having a reader was very distressing to us. And we realized that instead of having us hoarding onto the books, it would be better to find another way to get the books out into the hands of readers. So one of our dreams had been to create libraries that could be placed in either a care home setting or like a dementia cafe or a support group or anywhere where carers would congregate, and have the books available to them where they could take them, real books for real people in real places. So we developed our custom caregiver collections, and that launched earlier in this year. So in the United States now we have over 20 of them situated in different locations across the country, and they're custom made. So for instance, if you were like running a memory cafe at your church or something, you could get in touch with us, and you could tell us, what your clientele was like, and we would select the books that would meet their needs and their special interests. So like I did one here, we had a support group at a temple, and it was mainly women who were caring for their husbands. So we put together a lot of books that were about that, instead of like taking care of your mother, because that wasn't their situation. So so they're all custom made. And so the feedback has been that people, they don't even realize that the books even exist. There's like 15 to 20 books on this beautiful handcrafted bookshelf that's presented with our logo. And all of this is on our website. You can find it and see what they look like. And they don't even know that the books are available to begin with. Just to see them is astounding to them. And it really opens up a lot. And it helps people because they can share the books and then have a discussion. And our authors are available to come, via the internet to visit with your group and to have a book discussion with that author that was also a carer. And get information that way. And it gets people talking, and another way to just, relieve the isolation and the stigma.
And there's something special, isn't there, about holding a physical book? And some people, of course, choose not to use the internet or can't use the internet. So it's important to remember that as well. I was just thinking back about the writers who are writing books or podcasts or whatever, or blogs. Do you get a wide range of people from all over the world? Is it a wide range of age groups, cultural backgrounds? Is it really truly representative of everybody who's caring for somebody?
Well, we try. We have authors from I think every continent except Antarctica, and at least one, and many from the UK, the US, Canada. That seems to be the bulk of it. English-speaking world, Australia, primarily. It's all based in English, and across all the caregiving situations. Whether, you're caring, some people, we have one man who's caring for his daughter. He's in his 80s. His daughter has early onset, living in memory care. He's a blogger. That is a very unique situation, but there are situations like that exist where a parent is caring for their child. or people caring for grandparents, skip a generation. There's no mom and dad in the middle to take care of grandma, grandpa. So we have like all of that, caring for your spouse, and then all the different types of dementias. So we have like for Lewy body, early onset, Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, frontotemporal lobe, all the different dementias are actually represented as well. And we have many things that are cross-cultural and interracial as well. But it is stilted because, we can only feature the books that are being written.
Yeah.
So there are certain populations that are not writing the books. So we, would like to encourage people to put something together, and it doesn't have to be published. That's like the other thing. We encourage carriers to write their stories, even if they just want to have it for themselves or for their family. It doesn't have to be something that you make public that people can purchase on Amazon or a bookstore. So even if you just put together a notebook or type up a document like a manifesto of your story and share it with your loved ones, it's a good thing to leave behind.
Brilliant. Sorry, but we've literally, where half an hour has gone, I don't know. We've got 4 minutes left. We were going to talk about the 6 words. I'm just going to mention one, and then maybe if you want to briefly comment on that. This is probably something I would write as well. 6 words. I need more than 6 words. Yeah, I don't know if you just want to end with a comment on that.
Yeah, so our 6-word memory project was inspired by one of our authors who was in one of the books. You can go to 6wordmemoir.com, I believe is the website. And you can see all the different the books that have been put together with people telling their life story in 6 words, which sounds really challenging. But when you sit down and start thinking about it, you can start banging out a lot of these little stories. And so we encourage people who are caring for a loved one with dementia to tell their story in 6 words. And we are collecting them on the 6-word memoir website. We're going to put the link and the instructions in the show notes, and you are encouraged to put your story there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And just 1 or 2 words for everybody who's listening just before we wrap up. We know that this time of year can be particularly difficult and can often highlight loneliness and feelings of grief and all sorts of memories for all sorts of reasons. But just to say that you're not alone, and there are all sorts, as Marianne says, all sorts of resources out there. If you need to speak to anybody, the details of our phone line and our text service will also be in the notes, and they're on the Facebook web page and also our web page for Dementia Carers Count. If we didn't get to your question, I'm sorry, but we'll try and do that later. Or if you want a one-to-one chat, just let us know and we can respond to you directly. That's absolutely no problem. If you'd like to look at some of our resources, all free, lots of online sessions if you'd like to be part of that. And just finally to say a massive thank you to Marianne for joining us. Really enjoyed meeting you, and I'm sure all sorts of things will come out of today. I don't know whether you've got anything briefly that you want to say just before we wrap up. We've got sort of 1.5 minutes.
I did want to say that in the show notes, we're going to leave a link for you to download a free digital copy of our first anthology, Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregiving Stories. And when you do that, you'll be added to our mailing list. So you can stay abreast of what we've got going on, and encourage you to visit the website, listen to the podcast, write to us, let us know if we're missing something. If you're looking for something else, we're here to help.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining us. And particularly at this time of year, we hope you have a time of calm and of peace for yourselves and also for all those who you're caring for. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.